gamers, today Twitch chat was interested. You guys might be interested as well. I'm going to show you how the tournament drafts work in Age of Empires 4. So first thing, I'll give a little bit of an intro. Every tournament has their own drafts. This is the map pool for the upcoming EGC TV tournament, but every tournament has their own map pool. So it might not be exactly this one, it might be different one. And every tournament can have different amount of bans and different amount of picks. So if you're playing a best of 3, which is what I'm drafting right now versus Kaiser, just to show you guys, you need to pick 3 maps, and then each player, the red here, has 3 vetoes. And the order is, I ban 1 map, then he bans 1 map, he picks a map, I pick a map, ban, 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 and then whichever is the remaining map is the map that's played first, okay? And then civilization-wise, again, every tournament has a different civilization drafting system, depending which one it is. Now, this one is global pick. So there's 2 different things. There's the exclusive and global pick. Exclusive pick means that, global pick means that if I pick a civilization, Kaiser cannot pick the same civilization, which means that whenever there's a global pick, the opponent cannot pick the same civ. That means there's no mirror matchups. Exclusive ban is if I ban a civilization, I can still play it, but the opponent cannot play it. Okay, so for example, he would start banning civilization first. If he bans English, I cannot pick English, but he can play English. So he is exclusively banning it for me. And global bans or global picks means that once it's picked or once it's banned, neither player can play it. All right, so we'll do a draft. I'll just quickly show you. So again, Kaiser is helping me. He's in the chat as well, so we're not doing some, secret tournament drafting or something. So the first thing I do is I ban whichever map. So this is very dependent who you play against in the tournaments, what maps you prefer, or whatever else. So I'll just make it a lot simpler, and I'm going to ban Holy Island. Let's say I don't know how to play water maps, and I don't want to play Holy Island at all. There's some bug, by the way, with the names of the maps. I don't know why it's like this. A lot of players at the top level they don't play water maps, or they don't want to play water maps, or they do want to play water maps. So you got to know who you're playing against, what you're dealing with in order to prepare your draft properly, because I feel like a lot of players don't really have good drafting, but I also figured to make a video for you guys as well. So let's go with Gorge. So he picks Mongolian Heights, which is a hybrid map, and I pick Gorge. And now I ban, so let's say I ban Frisian Marches. And I'll explain after what's going on. Coastal cliffs, bridges. I'll ban Dry Arabia. And then he needs to ban 1 more. So whichever one he bans, either bridges or coastal, the last map is going to be played. Now, we got our draft right here. Now, whenever opponent picks a water map or a hybrid map, you have 2 choices. You will either double down on water, or you will make that the only map. So what do I mean by that? Once he picks Mongolian Heights, let's say there's another, let's say Holy Island was in. So I banned, let's say, Bridges map 1. And then he banned Cliffside, he picked Mongolian Heights. I have the choice of picking Holy Island as well. So we play 2 water maps. If I'm good at water maps, that's something I would probably want to do. If I'm not, I would want to stay away. So I would immediately ban the other water map. So there's that going into it. But again, a lot of this comes down to what you prefer first. Like, you don't want to play a water map just because your opponent doesn't like it if you have no clue how to play it, right? So you want to play what you know how to play. And if you get to a point where you are comfortable with every map, then you just veto the maps that your opponent likes, okay, or is good at. So if I'm playing against, an example from tournaments that everyone knows, whenever people play Holy Island, or whenever Holy Island is in the map pool and they play against Vortex or Luciferon, they always veto it because they have played that map a lot and they're very good on it. So they don't want to go there, right? So they just veto Holy Island. An example. So now we have our 3 maps, which are Gorge, Mongolian Heights, and Bridges. So now, obviously, there are civilizations that are good on those maps and civilizations that are not good on those maps. So these 2 maps, Gorge and Bridges, are pretty aggressive maps. I would say Bridges can be played a little bit defensive. Gorge is very aggressive, and then Mongolian Heights is very aggressive. So, for example, once we start the vetoes, we need to veto 4 civs, and I need to plan what I'm going to play on each map. So usually what you want to do is you want to have 2 civs at least, or even 3 maybe in this draft, that are flexible. So what does that mean? Well, I don't want to pick, like, let's say Mongol is the best civ here, French is the best civ here. I don't want to pick Mongol and French, because then it's obvious that I'm going to play those civs on those maps, and even though those civs are best, you might get counterpicked, right? Because if you pick French on Gorge, the enemy can pick Malian, right? And then hard counter you. So you want to have like a you know, flexibility with your civ picks to where the opponent doesn't know where you're going to play what. So it's not about picking the most overpowered civs. It's about picking the civs that are flexible, that your opponent doesn't know what you're going to pick where. So let's do the draft. I hope Kaiser is ready. So let's say, you know, right now Ottoman is the strongest civ, which is regularly banned, so I'll veto Ottoman. And you don't see his picks, right? He doesn't, or bans, he doesn't see mine. So let's say I have the first pick here. So what I can do is I can veto Mongol. Okay? He vetoes Ottoman and Rus, and now I can first pick Mongol immediately, because soon we're gonna do second rounds of bans. So now I pick Mongols, which is the strongest civ for Mongolian Heights, and I've locked that down, right? So now I have Mongols for my side, right? Which is, that's what I'm gonna play Mongolian, because Mongol is simply the strongest civ on that map. And now he got Rus for free, right? So there's no point, so he has a strong civ. Now, what I want to veto is something that he can potentially play on Mongolian Heights as well, that would counter Mongol. So let's say that something is China, right? I'm not going to reveal what counter is, but let's say it's China. So even though China is maybe not a great pick in the current meta or on these maps, I am vetoing China because it counters Mongol, right? So now I am securing my win for the Mongol and Mongolian Heights. Does that make sense? Rus is most likely not going to be played on Mongolian Heights, which means he will play Rus on Bridges and on Gorge, one of those two maps. So what do? What you do is, okay, he has Ayubit as well, together with Rus. So those two civs are very likely to be played on the open maps at this point. Obviously, I don't know the rest of his draft, but at this point, those are very likely to be played. So now, what you want to do is pick a civ that I would play against either of those civs. So let's say that civ is Malian, right? Now I have a flex civ that I can play on Gorge, and I can play on Bridges. That can be played against both of those, right? Now, he still needs to pick a civilization for Mongolian Heights, and he still needs to pick his last civilization. So he vetoed something. You can now double down, and I can veto another civilization for Mongolian Heights. Let's say Japanese is very good on Mongolian. So I can double down and just ruin his chances on playing any civ, any decent civ on a map. Or you can go with something more, you know, out there. So I can veto, Delhi is very good against Malian, right? So what I can do is I can veto Delhi so that he cannot pick that. There we go. He vetoed Delhi here, so I can't pick it. So if I veto Delhi for him, then he can't counter me. So no one's going to be playing Delhi. And now, what I need to do is pick another civ that is good against Rus and Ayubid. So Jeanne d'Arc, not very good against either of those civs specifically. So you can go for something like a boom civ, or you can go for a safe civ like English, or you can again go for something that you can potentially counter, but I'll go with, let's say, Jushi's Legacy, right? And now he has Japanese and English. Based on this draft, English is not good against Mongol, not good against Malian. It's pretty good against Jushi's Legacy, which I'll talk about in a moment. And let's say the last civ that I'll pick for Gorge or Bridges, I'll go with, let's say, Byzantines. Now, the drafting phase is over. Now you need to pre-plan, okay? So now you need to pre-plan what you're going to do. So you have Mongolian Heights, Bridges, and Gorge. So from my civ, my plan in this specific draft, every draft is different, is to play Mongols and Mongolian Heights. So the first map is Bridges. Bridges, for those that don't know, is a pretty standard map. Look at it like a Dry Arabia, but maybe it's a little bit more possible to play defensive. But it's an open map. So I'm not going to play this. He's not going to play this, right? We're probably saving that for Mongolian Heights. So what does this mean? I have Byzantines, Jushi's Legacy, or Malians, and he has Rus, Ayubid, and English. the first thing you want to do is deduct which civ can I play on that, what civ can I play on that map, right? Like, because not every player knows how to play every civ on every map, and then which civs are good on that map. So let's say that Rus and English are good on that map for whatever reason. I'm just giving you guys examples. I like all three are fine, but let's say for the sake of the argument that Rus and English are good on that map, and on my side I can play let's say Jushi's Legacy, Malian, and Byzantines. So which civ do I pick? Well, if I pick Jushi's Legacy on bridges, I have a 50-50% chance to get hard counter by English. Okay? So if I pick this and he picks English, I'm dead, most likely. Like, that's a really bad matchup. So, in order to avoid that, I should not pick that. Like, that makes no sense to pick Jushi's Legacy. I should not pick Jushi's Legacy until English is played. So, that means that my choice is Byzantine or Malian versus Rus and English. So, you go, do I want to play Malian versus English? Yes, that's a pretty good matchup for Malian. Do I want to play Malian versus Rus? I don't mind it, right? Do I want to play Byzantines versus English? It's okay. Do I want to play Byzantines versus Rus? I don't mind it. So I have two matchups with Byzantines I don't mind, and I have with a matchup with Malian that I don't mind and that I counter. So in this specific case, let's say again Ayubid is unplayable, I would be picking Malian game 1, even though Malian is not that good of a civ for bridges. You pick it because the civilizations that are in place are very good for me. So I pick Malian. Let's say he picks English, he loses. Now he has a choice, right? These are the civs that are remaining. Does he pick Mongolian Heights or Gorge? Realistically, he should pick Mongolian Heights. Why? Because he knows that I will play Mongol and Mongolian Heights, right? This is a guarantee. These two civs are not going to be played. So he needs to win the next two. So the order of the maps can matter, but in this case they don't. Why? Because he knows I'm going to play Mongols, but I don't know if he's going to play Rus, Ayubid, or Japanese. Rus probably not, but Ayubid or Japanese are viable. So it would make sense for him to not pick Mongolian Heights, but pick the other map first, and then Mongolian Heights last. I don't know what I said, but yeah, he should not pick Mongolian Heights second. So he should be going into Gorge. Now, when we go into Gorge, now he has drafting advantage, okay? Because if I play this on Mongolian Heights, that means that I can only play Jushi's Legacy and Byzantines on Gorge. Only two civs. Meanwhile, he has three options, okay? So now the advantage is on his side, because he has three viable civs and I only have two. Does that make sense? And if one of the civs, let's say, again, for the sake of the argument, let's say Jushi's Legacy is bad against Rus and Ayubid, okay? So let's say these two civs would defeat Jushi's Legacy. The only civ that I'm favored in is against Japanese. That's a 33% chance to get a good matchup and 66 to just get fucked, right? So with that logic, for me, it makes more sense to pick Byzantines, right? In that specific game. But if that's the logical thing, that means that he will know I will play Byzantines, and then he can pick whatever civ he is the most comfortable against Byzantines. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of strategy in drafts, and there's a lot of trying to outthink your opponent or outsmart it. Or sometimes you can just do the dented thing, and you can just be like, I'll just pick Jushi's Legacy because you won't expect it, right? Like, example, picking Jushi Legacy, like I said, against these three would be bad odds. But let's say Japanese counters Byzantines, right? So if your opponent is thinking, okay, he's not going to pick Jushi's Legacy because two civs counter it, he's going to pick Byzantines, so I'm going to pick Japanese against Byzantines, then you can pull a 5-head and you pick Jushi Legacy and he gets fucked, he counters himself. But that's gambling. I don't like to do a lot of gambling in tournaments. I like to play a slightly unfavorable matchup than just gamble to get a good matchup. But that's something you can do as well. At the end of the day, let's say I did pick Byzantines and he picked Japanese. He has a better matchup. He wins. By the way, these civilization drafts, they're not all like, oh, he picked a counter, I lose kind of thing. It's not like that, but obviously you want to get the matchups that are favorable. And now you have the last map. Let's say it's 1-1. The last map is Mongolian Heights. I pick Mongol, and he has a choice between Rus and Ayubid, which is not a good matchup for either of those. Now, Kaiser, let's do this is a best of 5 drafts. It's a little bit different. This is a best of 3 draft. Best of 3 drafts are usually more likely to be luck based because you only pick 4 civs and there's 3 maps. So sometimes it you know, once you get an unfavorable matchup, you can basically get screwed in the other ones really quickly. Now in best of 5s and best of 7s, because the drafts are bigger, there's more civilization potential, then there's less chance of RNG and more chance of just skill and like proper planning. It's very, you know, it's easy to get unlucky in a best of 3, but you're not gonna get unlucky in a best of 7 or 9 and be like, oh yeah, I got all bad matchups, right? The odds of that are very low. So you need to be like 1 in a million unlucky for that to happen. Kaiser, let's do this one. Oh no, sorry, not that one. Oops. This one. So this is a best of 5 draft. So again, we ban a map. So let's say this time I'll ban. Let's say I played against same opponent, which in this case Kaiser last week, and he picked Mongolian Heights first map. So now I'm gonna ban Mongolian Heights because I know that's his good map, right? I know that he loves playing that, and you know, whatever. So he bans Cliffside, and he picks Holy Island. So because he picked Mongolian and Holy Island, he clearly likes water maps. So if there's any other water maps in the map pool, I would probably veto them because the player is clearly trying to force the water maps. So now I can go, you know, I can go something standard like Dry Arabia. You don't gotta make it too complicated. Decide on a ban. Let's ban again. Golden Heights is a water map. So let's say I don't want to play water shit. We veto that. He picks Holy Island Frisian Marches. So what you can also do, let's say I only play 2 civs on Frisian Marches and 2 civs on Holy Island, right? And they're the same civs. I don't want to pick another map that's good for those civs because I need to diverse my pool of civilization. So let's say I'll pick Rocky Canyon and I'll veto Bridges. He'll veto whatever, and we get our first map. This is again a best of 5 draft. So now we have a bit more complicated system. Like the best of 3 was very simple. There's 3, you know, problems, 4 civilizations. Now we have 5 maps, and this is the civilization draft. This is what it looks like, and it goes ban, 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 pick, pick, ban, ban, pick, pick, ban, ban, and then the rest is picks. So again, now people usually start banning the most overpowered civs or the civs that are played on the most maps. In this case, again, it's Ottoman. So now, the most unique map here, last time it was Mongolian Heights, now it's Holy Island. Holy Island doesn't have 50 civs to be played on, okay? So, let's say both Kaiser and I are very good with HRE. So what I can do is I can veto HRE, or I can leave it, actually I can leave it open. I can veto Rus, let's say, right? I have the first pick. So he vetoes Ottoman and Rus. So let's say both him and I are very good with HRE and we both played on Holy Island. So the first thing I would perhaps pick in this one is HRE. Even though HRE is not a top civ, but now I have a civ that I took away from him because he can't pick it now, and I got a civ lockdown for one of the more specialized maps, which is Holy Island. Now I have to veto. China is a pretty good Holy Island map, so he might have picked China for that. Because once I pick HRE, I can just veto China next. So then he's like really running down on which civ he can play on Holy Island and stuff like that. Again, this is the bans can be either player specific or they can be general. It completely depends. What happens when the timer runs out? It just randomizes. Okay, he bans Mongols. Okay, he did a little Pepe dent because he he banned Mongols, but his pick was next. So he didn't need to ban Mongols there because he was going to pick it anyway. Right? But it's alright. So now you're starting to get the big picture. So now I can't tell much from this, right? What's good, what's not. Because there's not a lot of civs to play with. So let's say I like Delhi, I'll pick Delhi, right? Because I don't have a lot to go on. I don't know where he's gonna play Mongols, right? So I can't counter pick Mongols with something because I don't know what he's gonna play. And you have to do a lot of like assuming. So like right now I'm assuming that it's going to be HRE versus China on Holy Island. And then he does another veto. No, let's say he loves playing Ibid. I'll veto that. Right. This is a player specific. Because a lot of these maps that we have remaining, they're very standard. Rocky Canyon, Dry Arabia, Frisian Marches, and Lipany are more or less standard map, and you can play pretty much any civ there. I'll pick Jeanne d'Arc because Jeanne d'Arc is very good against Mongol, and Jeanne d'Arc counters Delhi. So by picking Jeanne d'Arc, not only I take it away from him, I have a counter for Mongols, and I take a counter that counters Delhi. So this is a very good pick right here. Very strong pick. Not because JD is a strong civ, but that was a very strong pick in the draft. So now he needs to pick something that's good against both of these. Now, because China is good against both of these, what he can do is what he just did. These are two good picks right here. I wish I can pause this. These are very good picks. So what I would do if I was him, initially you pick China for Holy Island. Now you swap Japanese for Holy Island and you play China and Jushi's Legacy on land against these two civs. That would be a very good strategic move. So now because he has China and Jushi's Legacy for land maps, what do I want to pick against those? I want to pick English because English is very good early on against both of those civs. So I have English. What's another civ that I want to play against Jushi's Legacy and China, right? So you have the remaining civs, so you can just pick whatever you want. Byzantines would be a good pick. Because of javelin throwers from Byzantines, you can push very early. So now he has China and Jushi that counter these two. But then I picked English and Byzantines to counter China and Jushi's Legacy. We're playing HRE versus Japanese, most likely on Holy Island. Now he has French, which is good against English, not so good against Byzantines. And, I mean, there's only two civs remaining, right? There's Abbasid and Order of the Dragon. He picks Order of the Dragon. So now I have choice between Abbasid and Ayyubid. Funnily enough, Abbasid is not bad here because he has a lot of booming civs. Abbasid would only be bad against Mongol and Order of the Dragon, but I think Ayyubid in tournament is just better. So I'll go with that. Now we have our draft. And now you have like a completed draft, and now you need to sort what you're going to play where. Let's say we both decided on Japanese versus Holy Roman Empire on Holy Island, which again, that would be the good move, and then keep China and Jushi Legacy to counter Delhi. Because Delhi does not want to play against either of those. So you have to be very careful of that. And again, because the draft is now done, the first map is Lipany. And Lipany is a map that you can play a lot of civs on. I mean, if you look at this, you can play Ayyubids, you can play Byzantines, you can play English because it counters the civs that are usually played on Lipany. You can play JD, you can play Delhi, you can play China because China counters Delhi and Delhi is played on Lipany. You can play Jushi's Legacy for the same reason. Mongol would probably not be a good pick. You can play French. Order of the Dragon, probably not. So if I'm him, you probably play China or Jushi's Legacy on Lipany and hope to meet Ayyubid or Delhi. So because this is a first map and nothing's really revealed as far as the lineup goes, you can either go for your most comfortable pick or you can throw out something weird to not get countered. So again, let's say Delhi is the best map for me on Lipany. The best map. So do I pick a civ that's the best on that map? And my opponent knows that and he will pick China or Jushi Legacy. And then I'm fucked, even though it's not that good of a map for China and Jushi. It's great for Delhi. It's a terrible matchup. Or do I use English? That's also not good for Lipany, but I have a high chance of meeting two civs that you will absolutely demolish. But then he might go the other way where he's, it's like too obvious that he's going to do that, so he picks French. And this is what a lot of high level players do. where they don't do the obvious picks, but then every once in a while you want to mix it up and you throw a curveball, you know, like you know, he thinks you're gonna pick like English maybe or Delhi, so he plays a civ for that, and then you end up picking like Byzantines and you go 2TC because there's a lot of berries. But like I said, this happens a lot with maps that are very open to the amount of civs that you can play. Lipany and Rocky Canyon and Dry Arabia, I would say, are pretty similar regarding that. Like, you can pretty much play any civ there. And then you have Frisian Marches, and this is where you can do pre-planning. So Frisian Marches, in theory, you can play any civ there, but not every civ is that good, right? It's not terrible, but it's like you don't get as much value. So for example, you can play Delhi and Frisian Marches, but there's only 2 sacred sites, right? So you can play Delhi and potentially counter a civ, but Delhi's not as strong because there's only 2 sacred sites, so you don't get as much gold. So if I'm thinking in advance, let's say I'm planning for Frisian Marches. Let's say, okay, I'm not going to play Delhi. I'm not going to play HRE because I'm going to play that on Holy Island. So what do I have? I have Ayyubid, Byzantine, English, and Jeanne d'Arc to play on that map. Jeanne d'Arc is probably the best pick out of these civs. Maybe Ayyubid. Like, these 2 are maybe the best for my lineup to pick. And then you have to look at his lineup, what he could potentially pick, right? So he can pick Mongol, he can pick China, he can pick Jushi's Legacy, and he can pick French. So if I lose a game, okay, let's say game number 1, you probably don't want to pick Frisian Marches because you're putting yourself in a position where I'm going to be playing one of the 2 civs and he's going to be playing one of the 4 civs. So then I'm playing a guessing game and he can make a calculated guess what I'm going to play and then pick a civ based off of that. Yeah, Kaiser said I would expect to face JD or Ayyubid on Frisian. Yeah, that's what I mean. So you also have to think like your opponent, right? You have to think, okay, this is the lineup I have. What would he expect? So there's like a deeper thing where it's like I pick Frisian Marches and I say, okay, I'm not playing Delhi, I'm not playing this. He's gonna think I'm playing JD or Ayyubid, which is what I said, and Kaiser confirmed. That's what he would think. So then I can say, okay, if I'm Kaiser and I think opponent's gonna play JD and Ayyubid, what do I play there, right? What do I play? So I can be like, okay, I'm gonna play. Let's say he's like, I'm gonna play Jushi's Legacy to counter that. Then you can do again a 5-head where I pick English that's not commonly played on Frisian Marches in order to try to counter the counter. Boom. Now I know this might seem like there's a lot of guessing and there's a lot of like luck involved. I would say there is luck involved in best of 3s because there's a pretty high chance you will get a bad matchup. But when you play a best of 5 or best of 7 is even more crazy, by the way. There is way less chance for RNG to happen. Way less chance. And the only time where in a best of 7 or a 9 where you will get extremely bad luck is if you're not playing it safe and you're YOLOing, right? Or you're doing like the obvious thing or whatever else. So this is why it's very important for top level players. It's not about just playing the best civ on the best map. It's about knowing how to play every civ on every map and being able to adjust. So what I mean by being able to adjust is, let's say this is my plan for Holy Island, right? This is what I calculated. We're playing game number 1 on Lipany, and let's say I lock JD, and he locks Japanese. That changes everything, right? Then I need to think, okay, what is he gonna play on Holy Island? So then you need to deduct, based on his remaining civs, what can he play there? And the answer is probably most likely China, right? So you can kind of scratch China off of future drafts because he needs to save that for Holy Island, and then you kind of know 2 of the 6 civs that he's gonna play already. Does that make sense? Boom. It would be good if you had another player talking through this. I mean, I'm giving you the enemy's point of view as well. I am playing both sides here. Or at least I'm trying to play both sides and explain from both sides what would make sense and so on and so forth. But yeah, drafting in tournaments, I've always said this, you know, there's a ladder. There's skill in the game on the ladder. Skill in the game on the ladder is nothing like tournaments, because in tournaments, you have three things. You have ladder, tournaments, and drafting. In tournaments, you have to play usually completely different. You have to play very aggressive. The opponents will play very aggressive. You know, you're nervous. You know, you're like, oh my god, if I lose this, I'm out of the tournament. So tournament skill and ladder skill is two completely different things. We've seen it over and over in Age of Empires 4 and in other games where a player does really well on ladder. He's beating these top tier pros, and then he goes tournament and he loses 0-3. And that's because they're very, very, very two different things. And then the third thing is the drafting, that is extremely important. Extremely important. You know, one thing that sometimes I mention on my stream, people say like, oh, you know, X or Y person is really good. They're rank 5 or 10 or 15, right? On the ladder. It's like, yeah, that's cool. But then you go on their profile and they play 3 most broken civs in the game, right? They play like Ottoman, Rus, and whatever. And then they go tournament, and I, you know that they're playing Ottoman, Rus, and JD, let's say. I veto those 3, and he's like, huh? And then he's playing like rank 500 because he doesn't play anything else, right? On ladder, you can kind of inflate your rank by playing strongest civs and strongest maps. In the tournaments, like I mentioned previously, you cannot just play whatever the best civ is on the best map. It's not gonna go well. You're gonna get countered a lot. So yeah, drafting takes some practice, and I've had tournaments where I just fucked up the drafting, and I knew from the start like this is not good. Because sometimes, you know, you're doing the draft, and I've had this happen before to me where I was doing the draft, and it was a tournament where there were 2 water maps. I think that was the situation. And basically, it was like Mediterranean and Boulder Bay or something like that. And I did the draft, and I was happy with my draft. And after game 2, I was like, holy fuck, I don't have a civ for Mediterranean. The opponent, let's say I had H or E for Boulder Bay, and the opponent had like, I don't know, like China Rus. And then I realized I don't have a civ for Mediterranean. I had like, I don't know, like French Mongol. And I was like, oh god, you know. So you can mess up those things really badly, and if you do, you're kind of screwed. So, yeah. Also, I know after talking to some players like to pre-plan the whole draft and then just say like, I'm going to play this here, I'm going to play this here, I'm going to play this here no matter what. And some players play more reactively, where they look at the draft, they look at the maps, and they're like, okay, I can play HRE here, I can play French here, I can play English here, Delhi here, Abbasid here. And then they're like, okay, let's start with Abbasid. And then they see what the opponent played, and then they adjust drafts or picks later on, you know, to make sure to get the best outcome. But that's it. I don't know if this is like a knowledge that you guys might have seen before or someone explained it, but I figured might as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching as always. Check me out on Twitch, I'm probably live right now. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.